Okay, what we have here is Anderson Ford Motorsports PMS. It's a standalone system. Can be used also as a piggyback, but there is a capability of it to turn on a full standalone above 2,000 RPMs for any Ford Mustang or Cobra. Alright, this is the main screen that pops up when you turn the key on. And you can see you got RPM and the DS3, that means data set. There's 3 data sets. I'm on number 3. Fuel percent and the percent, that's how much is getting used in the injector duty cycle. Timing degrees, it'll tell you exactly what timing you're running at that moment. It actually fluctuates a little bit when it's running. Just within a half degree it'll show you too. TPS, idle, and wide open throttle. Now a big thing with this is a lot of people have problems setting this up, and I believe if you don't set up the TPS right, it does affect the overall performance pretty well. And you can see right now I'm not touching the pedal at all and it says idle. That's what you want. I've heard of guys where they can never get it down to say idle. Well, you just gotta tinker with it. I'll show you the settings later on where you can change the voltage of idle and wide open throttle. Since it's a 5-volt signal, obviously anything high volts is going to be towards wide open throttle, and for idle it's going to be down low, almost a volt, say 0.98 of a volt. So right now it's at idle. I'm not touching the pedal at all, and you're going to watch, I'm just going to barely move the pedal and it should say 1%. Yep, that's exactly what you want. If you keep moving the pedal and you'll feel it, you want as soon as you move it, I mean the littlest hair movement, you want it to say 1%. Same with wide open throttle. Push it all the way to the floor. Let off a little bit. See? Get out of that glare. Okay, and now load. That's how much percent of load the engine has. O2's left and right. The one on the left over here, actually, the 00L, that's the left. A lot of people get confused. See how it says 00L and then 1.28R? That's rich and lean. That's what that means. It's not left and right. 1.28 and 00, definitely there's something wrong with my O2s, but it doesn't matter when you have innovative LC1 or something like that. Wideband, there we go, sorry, forgot. Temperature, water and air, W and A. 58 degrees is the water temperature in the engine right now. 54 is what the air temperature sensor is saying. MN pressure is manifold pressure. And once you hook up the map sensor, it'll go to 0 or back down to negative for vacuum. And then if you're making boost, it'll obviously go up 1 psi. I'll show you that in another video. Now the basic buttons are, you could say left and right, and then positive and negative. But the left and right thing really doesn't, it's more of the right buttons go into and the left buttons go back out. And then you have a directional pad over here that just moves it around when you get to the one screen. Alright, so what you want to do is you want to hit the back button. That goes to the data set. Actually, before I show you the data sets and how to tune, actually I'll just go into that first. Idle. Okay, we got idle, part throttle. We can edit all these, as you can see. ACC is accessory, temp is temperature. And the temperature one you can adjust, say for every 20 degrees of air you can adjust to add more fuel or add more spark, or vice versa, take out fuel. Or for water temperature you can do the same. So if your engine, if you want to take out fuel at higher degrees Fahrenheit, you can. Boost, if you run in a turbo, you hook up a map sensor and you set it to say your max boost 6 psi. And then you make, I'll show you that, we'll get into that. Excel has to do with, it's almost like if you read the manual, Mr. Anderson will say it's almost like the plunger, high-speed plunger in a carburetor, which is true. You can actually add more fuel, etc. Save is just a save after you're done editing. Options, there's a whole bunch of good stuff in there we'll get to. Nitrous, if you got it, same as the boost pretty much. When you activate the switch, you hook it up, you hook up switch to your nitrous, and you also run a lead from the nitrous. When you turn it on, it sends a 12-volt signal into the PMS, and it'll tell it to add fuel or spark for whatever RPMs or TPS range you want. Wide open throttle edit, you can edit the sorry, the fuel and ignition and wide open throttle. Part throttle, same thing. The part throttle is probably the biggest thing with these PMSs. I noticed there's a lot more settings with part throttle, but then again, that's where a lot of your drivability needs are. Whereas wide open throttle, you just need, more fuel or more spark. There's no, rough estimates and little changes, exact changes that have to be made. And idle, I'll go into that. Okay, now you got idle fuel. A lot of people think adding, say, 10% of fuel is going to make the idle go up. That has nothing to do with making your idle go high or low. You have to set that by reading in the manual. It'll tell you how to set your idle. You have to actually unplug your IAC and do all this other stuff with the TPS, set up the voltage. If you change your voltage with the TPS, which I'll show you later, sometimes that does affect your idle. Okay, so say, I like a little bit richer running idle. It runs a little smoother, I think, and a little bit more timing. So I got it up to 10%. Now, if you want to add more, you can. Just hit the positive button right here. If you want to take out, you can. Same with the ignition. Or no, not the ignition, the timing. Just go down. See, I can add more, take it out, whatever. Start fuel. If you got some big 60-pound Delphis in, you can take all that fuel out that you don't want, and as soon as the engine fires over, it just goes in normal operating conditions. This is only happening when the starter is engaged. Now, see, I made all these changes, and as long as all I have to do is say I didn't want these changes, just turn the key off and reset it, or just don't save it and load another log. As long as you don't go out here and go down to the save there, that will not save. Now if you watch, I'll go back into my idle and it's still the same because I haven't left this screen. But if I turn the key off, it'll go away. But I'm not going to do that right now. Okay, part throttle. This is where it gets good. A lot of guys like the availability and options of the part throttle. See, now in part throttle, it's a whole different setup. You can see you got RPMs and load. The load is pretty much your TPS, where it's at the time, the load of the motor. You can see it goes from low, medium to high load, 2,000 to 8,000. Now, with this, same thing. You want to add more, take away more. I'm at -2 right now. Add a little bit more, and if you notice, all the ones around it are changing, just like any other tuner system. They all have to be equal, pretty much. Now, if I want to edit this one separately, I almost forget which button I gotta press. You gotta hit one of these buttons, and it'll do single cell edit. What the hell? I don't even remember which one it was now. You have to look in the manual. But anyway, yeah, look in the manual for that. I'm not sure. But you can edit separate numbers. Like, say, a -4, if I just want to change that to -3, I can. Instead of just changing it, the whole thing like that. It'll change all the other ones also. But there is this option. I just don't remember which button to press. Yeah, you can just change that one. Now, the same with the timing. High load, medium load, low load, part throttle, and the RPM range. You can edit all the timing. Okay,